A rich kid pours wine on a black woman at a charity gala. His parents laugh. The crowd watches in silence. But what they don't know is that the woman standing there, dripping in red wine and humiliation, isn't just anyone. She's the woman who holds their future in her hands. No screaming, no threats, just 5 words that will haunt them forever. But this isn't just about revenge. This isn't just about power. This is about the moment when disrespect meets consequence, when arrogance meets accountability, and when someone who thought they were untouchable realizes they just destroyed everything their family built. You think you know how this story ends? You don't, because the wine will wash out. The dress will be replaced. But what she does next will cost them $650 million and change their lives forever. But before we dive in, you need to understand something. What happens in the next 20 minutes isn't just a story. It's a lesson about power, respect, and the price we pay when we forget that every person we meet deserves dignity. And by the end, you'll never look at power the same way again. Real quick, before this story takes you on a journey you won't forget, I want to know, where in the world are you watching this from right now? Drop your city or country in the comments. It genuinely means everything to know that people from all corners of the earth are here, learning these lessons together. We're building something special here, and you're part of it. So comment below, let me know where you're from, and let's begin. Amara Chun stood near the balcony of the Grand Meridian Hotel, her simple black dress a stark contrast to the glittering gowns around her. At 42, she'd built Zenith Global Technologies from a single patent into a trillion-dollar empire. 12 nations depended on her AI infrastructure. The Pentagon called her essential. Tonight, she was here to finalize a $650 million deal with Hartwell Industries, a dying manufacturing company desperate for her technology. Across the room, Blake Hartwell Jr. laughed too loudly, his entourage hanging on every word. At 26, he'd never earned anything. His father's money had erased every mistake, smoothed every consequence. He noticed Amara and sneered. "Who invited her?" he said loud enough for others to hear. "She looks lost." His parents, Margaret and Robert, watched from their table. Margaret smiled tightly. "He's just spirited." Robert chuckled, sipping his scotch. Blake approached Amara, wine glass dangling from his fingers. "Excuse me, are you serving tonight? I need a refill." His friends snickered behind him. Amara turned slowly. "I'm not staff." Blake looked her up and down. "Could have fooled me. That dress looks budget." The room grew quieter. People pretended not to watch while watching everything. "I prefer simple things," Amara said evenly. "They last longer than things just for show." His smile twisted into something uglier. "You know what your problem is? You people always try to act like you belong in places like this." Then, deliberately, he tipped his wine glass. Red liquid cascaded over Amara's shoulder, staining her dress, dripping onto her shoes. "Oops," Blake grinned. "Guess you'll need to clean that up." Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Phones lifted. Cameras captured everything. Amara stood perfectly still, wine dripping from her dress, her expression carved from stone. The room held its breath. She reached into her clutch and pulled out her phone, her movements unhurried. "You just made the most expensive mistake of your life," she said quietly. Her voice was calm, but it cut through the silence like a blade. Blake laughed nervously. "Do you know who my family is? Do you know who I am?" Amara asked. She never raised her voice. "Dr. Amara Chun, CEO of Zenith Global Technologies. The company your father has been begging to partner with for 8 months." Blake's smile faltered. His parents stood from their table, Margaret's face draining of color. Robert rushed forward. "Dr. Chun, please, my son didn't mean." Amara held up one hand. She dialed a number, phone to her ear. "Marcus, cancel the Hartwell contract. Immediately. All $650 million. Yes, now." She ended the call and slipped her phone back into her clutch. "What did you just do?" Robert whispered, his voice hoarse. "I just saved my company from associating with yours," Amara said. She walked past them, heels clicking on marble, leaving a trail of wine drops behind her. The crowd parted like water. Blake stood frozen, finally understanding. Margaret grabbed his arm, her nails digging in. "What have you done?" Robert's phone began to ring. Then Margaret's. Then Blake's. All at once, like an alarm no one could silence. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Investors swarmed the Hartwells, voices overlapping in panic. Robert's hands shook as he answered call after call. Yes, I understand. Please, let me explain. Wait, don't. The line went dead. Margaret tried to chase after Amara, but security blocked her path. Please, we can fix this. Blake made a mistake. He's young, he didn't know. He knew exactly what he was doing, someone muttered nearby. The video was already spreading. Within minutes, it had 10,000 views. Within an hour, 1,000,000. Blake scrolled through his phone, his face pale. Comments flooded in. Disgusting. Entitled brat. He just destroyed his family. His hands trembled. This couldn't be real. It was just wine. Just a joke. Robert grabbed Blake's collar, pulling him close. Do you understand what you've done? That woman controls half the defense contracts in this country. She's not just rich, she's untouchable. I didn't know, Blake stammered. You didn't care, Margaret hissed. At 11:47 p.m., the stock market alert came through. Hartwell Industries, down 40%. $2 billion evaporated overnight. Investors were pulling out. Partners were terminating contracts. The empire Robert's grandfather had built was crumbling in real time. Blake stared at his phone, watching his family's company collapse because of one stupid moment. One glass of wine. He felt sick. 30 years earlier, a 12-year-old girl named Amara sat in the back of a Philadelphia foster home, reading a physics textbook she'd stolen from the library. The other kids called her weird. Teachers said she asked too many questions. No one wanted to adopt the quiet black girl who talked about quantum mechanics. Then Dr. Eloise Grant walked into her life. Eloise was 72, a retired physicist who'd worked on classified government projects. She saw Amara reading and sat down beside her. You understand that? She asked, pointing to a complex equation. Not yet, Amara admitted. But I will. Eloise smiled. Then you're already smarter than most. She became Amara's mentor, then her guardian. She taught her everything. Physics, coding, but most importantly, how to wield power. Power isn't loud, Amara. It's patient. It waits for the perfect moment, then it strikes once. Decisively. Amara built her first algorithm at 16. By 25, she had her first patent. By 30, her first billion. She never forgot where she came from. Never forgot the people who underestimated her. When Eloise died 5 years ago, Amara stood at her grave and made a promise. I'll build an empire so big, they'll have no choice but to respect us. Tonight, drenched in wine, she'd kept that promise. Respect was non-negotiable. The Hartwell Industries boardroom felt like a funeral. 15 directors sat around the table, their faces grim. Robert stood at the head, dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept. None of them had. Gentlemen, ladies, we can recover from this, Robert said, but his voice lacked conviction. Recover? A director slammed his folder on the table. We've lost 60% of our value in 24 hours. Our biggest partners are gone. Chen didn't just cancel one deal. She poisoned the well. Margaret sat in the corner, silent. Blake wasn't even invited. He was locked in his penthouse, watching the world turn against him. His social media was a wasteland of hatred. Former friends posted statements distancing themselves. His girlfriend broke up with him via text. He scrolled through the comments under the viral video. Hope his life gets destroyed. This is what privilege looks like. Someone find out where he works. Except he didn't work. He never had to. His phone rang. His father. The board wants you gone, Robert said without preamble. Your trust fund is frozen until this blows over. You're out of the penthouse by Friday. Dad, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix $2 billion. The line went dead. At 3 p.m., another earthquake hit. Data Core Systems, Hartwell's biggest remaining partner, announced they were terminating their contract and signing with Zenith Global instead. Amara Chen had poached them with a single phone call. The empire was dying, and Blake had killed it. Blake's world is crumbling. $2 billion gone. His family's legacy destroyed. And he still doesn't fully understand what he's lost. But here's the thing. Stories like this don't go viral by accident. They spread because people like you decide they matter. If this story is hitting you right now, if you're feeling that mix of anger and satisfaction, do me a favor. Hit that like button. It takes half a second, but it tells YouTube that this message about respect and consequences needs to reach more people. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We dive deep into stories like this every week. Stories that make you think, feel, and see the world differently. Let's keep going. This is about to get even more intense. Blake showed up at Zenith Global headquarters at 7 a.m., unshaven and desperate. The building was a glass tower that seemed to pierce the sky, a monument to everything he'd just destroyed. Security stopped him at the entrance. "I need to see Dr. Chun," Blake said. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but she knows me. I need to apologize." The guard's expression didn't change. "Dr. Chun doesn't see walk-ins." He radioed someone. Within seconds, 2 more guards appeared. Blake's presence had been flagged in the system. "Sir, you need to leave," one said firmly. "Please, just 5 minutes. I need to explain." "You need to leave. Now." Blake's voice rose. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes, sir. Everyone knows who you are." The guard's tone held no sympathy. "That's why you're not getting in." They escorted him to the street. Cameras caught it all. Someone live-streamed it. By noon, another video was viral. Entitled "Airbags for Forgiveness Gets Thrown Out." Blake sat on the curb outside, head in his hands. People walked past, some recognizing him, most ignoring him. For the first time in his life, he was invisible, powerless. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "You're on your own. Don't come home." He stared at the message until his vision blurred. 30 floors above, Amara watched the security footage on her office monitor. Blake sat on the curb like a broken doll. Her assistant, Zara, stood beside her, arms crossed. "He looks pathetic," Zara said softly. "Maybe hear him out." Amara's expression didn't change. "He had the chance to treat me with basic human decency. He chose cruelty. So this is revenge. This is consequence." Amara turned away from the window. Respect is the first term in every contract. He violated it. His family laughed. "They don't get to negotiate now." Her phone rang. "Senator Okoye." Amara answered on speaker. "Senator." "Amara, I heard about the Hartwell situation. I want to help." Okoye's voice was smooth, calculated. "Robert Hartwell has been blocking my infrastructure bill for 2 years. If you want, I can make sure his company never recovers. Government audits, federal investigations, regulatory hell. Say the word." Zara's eyes widened. This was beyond business now. This was annihilation. Amara was quiet for a long moment. Eloise's voice echoed in her mind. "Don't let hatred consume your power." But another voice whispered too. "They would never show you mercy." "I'll think about it," Amara said finally. "Thank you, Senator." She ended the call and stared at the city skyline. Power was a double-edged sword. She'd spent her life earning it. Now she had to decide how to use it. 5 years ago, Amara sat beside Eloise's hospital bed, holding her mentor's frail hand. Cancer had ravaged the brilliant woman who'd saved her life. Eloise's breathing was shallow, each breath a battle. "You've built something extraordinary," Eloise whispered. "But don't let it make you hard." "I learned from the best," Amara said, voice cracking. Eloise smiled weakly. "You learned to be strong. Now learn to be wise." She squeezed Amara's hand. "Power isn't just about what you can destroy. It's about what you choose to build. Promise me you won't let hatred consume you." "I promise," Amara whispered. Eloise died 3 hours later. Amara stayed until dawn, holding her hand even after it went cold. She'd lost the only mother she'd ever known. At the funeral, Amara stood alone in the rain, staring at the casket. "I'll make you proud," she'd said. "I'll build an empire that changes everything." Now, in her office, looking at Blake's broken form on the security feed, she wondered if Eloise would be proud of this. Of revenge dressed as justice. Of using her power to crush instead of build. She closed her eyes. "I don't know what to do," she whispered to the empty room. But the empty room offered no answers. Robert and Margaret Hartwell arrived at Zenith Global at 9 a.m. sharp, wearing their best clothes and their worst expressions. Pride swallowed whole tastes like poison. They'd rehearsed their apology 100 times. Blamed Blake entirely. Distanced themselves from his actions. The receptionist made them wait. 1 hour. 2. 3. Other executives walked past, some recognizing them, most not caring. Once, people would have stopped everything to greet the Hartwells. Now they were just 2 more desperate supplicants. Finally, at noon, they were escorted to Amara's office. She sat behind a massive glass desk, backlit by floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. She didn't stand when they entered. "Dr. Chun," Robert began, his voice humble in a way it had never been. "We're here to—" "I know why you're here," Amara interrupted. "You want me to reconsider." Margaret stepped forward. Blake made a terrible mistake. But he's young. He didn't understand. He's 26. Not a child. Amara's eyes were cold. And you laughed. Both of you. When he poured wine on me, you thought it was funny. Robert's jaw tightened. We were wrong. Completely wrong. We're prepared to offer whatever compensation. I don't want your money. Amara stood, walking to the window. I've already partnered with Meridian Tech. They're your biggest competitor. With my technology, they'll dominate the market within 6 months. Hartwell Industries will be obsolete. Margaret's face crumpled. You're destroying hundreds of jobs. Families depend on that company. Amara turned, her expression unreadable. Then you should have thought about them before you raised a son who thinks people are beneath him. The meeting was over. Security escorted them out. In the elevator, Margaret began to cry. Robert stared straight ahead, his empire dying floor by floor. Blake's penthouse was empty now. Furniture repossessed. Trust fund frozen. His father had cut him off completely. He'd moved into a studio apartment in Queens, working at a coffee shop for minimum wage. His co-workers recognized him immediately. Aren't you that rich kid? One asked. Word spread fast. Customers whispered. Some took photos. One woman refused service from him. I don't want people like you touching my coffee. Blake learned what it felt like to be dismissed, to be judged before speaking, to have your humanity questioned based on assumptions. Every insult, every sneer, every moment of disrespect, he felt it all now. His younger sister, Sloane, 19 and in college, came to visit. She stood in his tiny apartment, looking around with sad eyes. I looked up to you, she said quietly. You were my big brother. My hero. Sloane, I'm sorry. Do you even understand what you did? Her voice shook. You humiliated a black woman in front of hundreds of people. You treated her like trash because you thought you could. Because you thought your money made you better. I know, Blake whispered. I know. No, you don't. Sloane's eyes filled with tears. Mom's in the hospital. The stress gave her a heart condition. Dad's being investigated for fraud. Our family name is ruined. And it's all because you couldn't show basic respect to another human being. She left without another word. Blake sat on his mattress on the floor and finally, truly understood what he'd destroyed. Blake just lost everything. His sister won't speak to him. His mother's in the hospital. He's learning what it feels like to be invisible, powerless, disrespected. Pause for a second. If this story is making you feel something, anger, empathy, maybe even a little bit of both, share it. Send it to someone who needs to hear this message about humility and consequence. Because the people who need to see this most, they're not going to find it unless you help spread it. And if you're watching without subscribing, I have to ask, why? Every week, we bring you stories that challenge how you see power, respect, and human dignity. Subscribe now so you never miss what happens next. Trust me, this story is far from over. Let's continue. Amara read the news over morning coffee. Hartwell Industries announces layoffs. 500 workers affected. Her hand trembled slightly. 500 families. People who'd done nothing wrong, losing their jobs because of a decision she'd made. Zara noticed. This isn't your fault, isn't it? Amara set down her tablet. I could have handled this differently. They disrespected you. You had every right. Rights don't feed those 500 families. Amara stood, grabbing her coat. I need air. She drove to Riverside Cemetery, where Eloise was buried. The grave was simple, just a name and dates. Amara sat on the grass beside it, like she used to sit beside Eloise's hospital bed. I don't know if you'd be proud of me right now, Amara said aloud. I used my power exactly how you taught me. But it doesn't feel like winning. The wind rustled through the trees. No answer came. Amara heard footsteps behind her. She turned to see Margaret Hartwell standing there, holding flowers. They stared at each other, both frozen. I'm visiting my mother, Margaret said quietly, gesturing to a grave 20 feet away. I didn't know you'd be here. They stood in uncomfortable silence. Two women, both mourning, both carrying the weight of what had happened. My mother died 5 years ago, Margaret said suddenly. She was a housekeeper. Worked 3 jobs to put me through school. She taught me that hard work and dignity were everything. Her voice cracked. I forgot that lesson. I let wealth make me blind. Amara said nothing. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Margaret continued. I'm just saying I'm sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. For laughing. For raising a son who thought cruelty was acceptable. For everything. Then Margaret collapsed. Amara caught Margaret before she hit the ground. "Call 911, she shouted to a groundskeeper nearby. Margaret clutched her chest, her breathing rapid and shallow. "Heart attack. Stay with me," Amara said, lowering her to the grass. She'd taken emergency response training years ago. She checked Margaret's pulse. Weak, irregular. "Breathe slowly. Help is coming." Margaret's eyes fluttered. "Why are you helping me?" "Because I'm not you," Amara said simply. The ambulance arrived within minutes. Paramedics loaded Margaret onto a stretcher. One of them looked at Amara. "You probably saved her life." Another few minutes, and at the hospital, Amara waited. She didn't know why. She should leave. This wasn't her responsibility. But Eloise's voice echoed. "Power is also about what you choose to build." 2 hours later, a doctor emerged. "She's stable. You can see her if you'd like." Margaret lay in the hospital bed, looking small and fragile. When she saw Amara, tears filled her eyes. "You saved me. After everything we did, you saved me." Amara sat in the chair beside the bed. "I didn't do it for you. I did it because it's who I am. I don't deserve your kindness." "No," Amara agreed. "You don't. But maybe that's the point." Margaret was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that changed everything. "My husband has been embezzling from the company for years. I have proof. Bank statements, offshore accounts, everything." She looked at Amara. "If you want to truly destroy Hartwell Industries, that's how you do it. But those 500 workers? They deserve better than Robert's corruption." Amara leaned forward. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because maybe," Margaret whispered, "it's time I did the right thing." Over the next 2 weeks, Amara and Margaret worked together in secret. Margaret provided documents, emails, financial records. Robert had been siphoning millions from company accounts, hiding losses, defrauding investors. The corruption ran deep. Blake learned about his father's crimes from Margaret herself. She called him to the hospital, weak but determined. "Your father is not the man we thought he was," she said. "Everything we have, the houses, the cars, your trust fund, it was all stolen." Blake sat in stunned silence. His entire life had been a lie built on theft. "I'm giving everything to Dr. Chun," Margaret continued. "She'll decide what to do with it. But I need you to know, the person you became wasn't just your fault. Your father and I taught you that money made you untouchable. We were wrong." That night, federal agents raided Hartwell Industries headquarters. Robert was arrested on live television, let out in handcuffs as cameras flashed. Charges: embezzlement, fraud, tax evasion. The scandal was immediate and total. Blake watched the broadcast from his tiny apartment. His father, the man he'd idolized, imitated, tried to impress, was a criminal. Everything he'd believed about power, about success, about what made someone important, crumbled. His phone buzzed. An unknown number. A text. "Your father built an empire on lies. You destroyed it with cruelty. What will you build with truth?" AC. Amara Chun. She was watching. Even now. Blake spent 3 days writing a letter. Not an excuse, not a justification. Just truth. He wrote about his privilege, his ignorance, his cruelty. He wrote about the moment he poured that wine and how he'd replayed it 1,000 times, wishing he could take it back. He wrote about learning what it felt like to be dismissed, disrespected, invisible. He ended with, "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to be better. Not for redemption. Just because it's right." He posted the letter publicly. No filters. No PR team. Just raw accountability. The internet exploded. Some people called it performative. Others saw genuine remorse. The debate raged for days. Blake didn't respond to any of it. He just kept working at the coffee shop, kept living in his small apartment, kept trying to figure out who he was without money. Then something unexpected happened. A youth center in Brooklyn reached out. They needed someone to teach a class on privilege and accountability to teenagers from wealthy families. "We think you might understand both sides now," the director said. Blake took the job. Every Saturday, he sat with kids who reminded him of his old self. He told them his story, the whole ugly truth. "Power without respect is just cruelty," he said. "I learned that the hard way." One kid asked, "Do you think she'll ever forgive you?" Blake shook his head. "Forgiveness isn't the point. Being better is." Margaret's health deteriorated rapidly. The stress, the heart attack, the revelation of her husband's crimes, it was too much. Amara visited her regularly, bringing books and sitting in comfortable silence. "Why do you keep coming?" Margaret asked one afternoon. Because Eloise taught me that power is meaningless if you only use it to tear down, Amara said. You're trying to make things right. That matters. Margaret smiled weakly. I have a daughter, Sloane. She's brilliant, wants to study engineering at MIT. But with everything that's happened, we can't afford it anymore. She grabbed Amara's hand. Promise me you'll look after her. Not with money, with mentorship. She needs someone strong to show her what real power looks like. I promise, Amara said. 2 days later, Margaret had a massive stroke. She died before morning. Sloane and Blake were both there, holding her hands as she slipped away. At the funeral, Amara stood in the back. She watched Blake comfort his sister, watched Sloane cry into his shoulder. They'd lost everything, wealth, status, both parents in different ways. But they had each other. After the service, Sloane approached Amara. My mother told me about you, about what you promised her. I keep my promises, Amara said gently. Sloane's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. For everything. For being kind when you didn't have to be. Amara thought of Eloise. Of every person who'd shown her kindness when the world had been cruel. That's what we do, she said. We build each other up. Margaret just died. Blake posted his letter of accountability to the world. And Amara is standing at a crossroads between revenge and redemption. This is the moment I need you to understand something. Stories like this survive because you choose to keep them alive. If this journey has moved you, if you felt the weight of every decision, every consequence, every moment of growth, then like this video right now, let YouTube know that meaningful storytelling matters. Share this with someone who needs to understand that change is possible, that accountability matters, that respect is everything. And if somehow you're still not subscribed, I'm asking you one more time, join this community. Because we're not just watching stories. We're learning how to be better humans. Amara created 2 scholarships, the Eloise Grant STEM Fellowship and the Margaret Hartwell Second Chances Fund. The first supported young Black women in science. The second helped children of disgraced families rebuild their lives with integrity. Sloane was the first recipient of both. At the press conference, Amara explained her decision. Revenge feels satisfying for a moment. But building something that outlasts you? That's power. She looked directly at the camera. I was disrespected. I could have destroyed everyone connected to that moment. Instead, I'm choosing to create opportunity from pain. A reporter asked, what about Blake Hartwell? Amara paused. Blake Hartwell made a terrible mistake. He's spending his life trying to make amends. That's between him and his conscience. But privately, she'd been watching him. The youth center work. The public accountability. The genuine change in how he moved through the world. It didn't erase what he'd done, but it was something. Her phone rang. Blake's number. She'd never deleted it. She answered. Mr. Hartwell. Dr. Chun. His voice was different now, smaller, humbler. I don't want anything from you. I just wanted to say thank you for what you're doing for Sloane. She deserves it. She does, Amara agreed. Silence stretched between them. I'm working at a youth center, Blake said. Teaching kids about accountability. It's not much, but it's honest work. Honest work is everything, Amara said. More silence. Then Blake spoke again, his voice breaking. I see your face every day. What I did to you. I'll see it for the rest of my life. Good, Amara said quietly. You should. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. You're right. You don't. Amara's voice was firm, but not cruel. But you deserve the chance to be better. Come to my office Monday morning. Zenith Global has a mailroom position open. Minimum wage. No special treatment. You'll earn every promotion, if you ever get one. Blake was silent, shocked. I'm not doing this for you, Amara continued. I'm doing it because someone once gave me a chance when I deserved nothing. Maybe you'll prove worthy of it. Maybe you won't. But you'll have the opportunity to try. I won't let you down, Blake whispered. We'll see, Amara said, and ended the call. 1 year later, Blake Hartwell stood in the mailroom of Zenith Global, sorting packages and documents. He arrived early every day, left late, never complained. His coworkers barely knew who he was, just another guy doing his job. Until today, Blake was bringing mail to the 14th floor when he heard shouting. A senior executive was berating a janitor, an older immigrant woman who'd accidentally knocked over a trash can. You're worthless, the executive shouted. Clean this up and get out of my sight. Blake stepped forward. Hey, that's not okay. The executive turned, annoyed. Who are you? Someone who learned the hard way that every person deserves respect. Blake knelt down, helping the janitor pick up the scattered trash. She made a mistake. You don't talk to people like that. Do you know who I am? The executive snarled. I don't care, Blake said simply. Respect isn't about position. It's about character. The executive stormed off, muttering about reporting Blake. The janitor looked at him with grateful eyes. Thank you, she said softly. Thank you for teaching me something important, Blake replied. From her office, Amara watched the security footage. A small smile crossed her face. She picked up her phone and called HR. The mailroom employee, Blake Hartwell. Promote him to junior analyst. He just passed a test he didn't know he was taking. Sloan graduated top of her class at MIT. At the ceremony, Amara sat in the audience beside an empty chair with Eloise's photo on it. Sloan's speech brought tears to hundreds of eyes. I lost everything, Sloan said from the podium. My family's wealth, my mother, my sense of who I was. But I gained something more valuable, understanding. Dr. Amarachin showed me that power isn't about what you have. It's about what you do with what you're given. After the ceremony, Sloan hugged Amara tightly. You saved my life. You saved your own life, Amara corrected gently. I just opened a door. You walked through it. Blake attended the graduation too, sitting in the back. He'd been working at Zenith Global for a year, slowly earning his way up. When he saw Amara, he nodded respectfully. She nodded back. Not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. He was different now. That evening, Amara returned to Eloise's grave. I kept my promise, she said aloud. I built something that matters. And I didn't let hatred consume me. I hope that makes you proud. The wind carried her words away, but somehow, she felt Eloise's answer. A warmth in her chest. A sense of peace. 3 years after the wine incident, Amara stood on a stage at the Global Tech Summit. Thousands of people filled the auditorium. Sloan stood beside her, now working as a junior engineer at Zenith Global. Power comes in many forms, Amara said, her voice steady and strong. Money, influence, control. But the most important power is the power to choose. Choose respect over cruelty. Choose building over destroying. Choose accountability over excuses. She never mentioned Blake's name. Never mentioned that night. But everyone knew what she was talking about. The story had become legend. Someone once disrespected me, she continued. They thought their privilege made them untouchable. They were wrong. But the real story isn't about revenge. It's about what we do after we've been hurt. Do we become what hurt us? Or do we become something better? In the audience, Blake sat beside his sister. He'd worked his way up to senior analyst. Not because of who he used to be, but because of who he'd become. Tears streamed down his face as he listened. Respect is the first term in every contract, Amara said, her final words ringing through the auditorium. In business, in life, in how we treat each other. Never forget that. The audience rose in standing ovation. Amara looked at the empty chair in the front row, where Eloise's photo sat surrounded by flowers. After the conference, Amara walked through Central Park alone. The sun was setting, casting golden light through the trees. Her phone buzzed. A message from Blake. Thank you for teaching me what power really means. She didn't respond. Some lessons didn't need acknowledgement. She thought about the scared 12-year-old girl in the foster home, reading stolen books and dreaming of a different life. She thought about Eloise's patient hands teaching her that power wasn't loud. It was patient, deliberate, strategic. She thought about that night at the gala, wine dripping down her dress, and the choice she'd made in that moment. Not to be cruel, but to be strong. Not to destroy, but to teach. Years later, a young black woman approached Amara at another conference. You're the reason I'm in tech, the woman said shyly. I saw what you did. How you handled disrespect with dignity. It changed my life. Amara smiled. Then pay it forward. That's how we change the world. One choice, one person, one moment of choosing respect over cruelty. The sun set over the city Amara had conquered not with hatred, but with integrity. Eloise's words echoed one final time. Power isn't loud. It's patient, and it always remembers who it's building for. Somewhere in Manhattan, Blake Hartwell finished his shift and went home to his modest apartment. He looked at his reflection in the mirror. Not the rich, entitled boy he used to be, but a man who'd learned the hardest lesson of his life. Respect isn't given. It's earned, and it costs nothing to give. Amarachin had taught him that. And though she'd never said the words, "I forgive you," she'd given him something better, the chance to become someone worthy of forgiveness. The wine stain had washed out long ago, but the lesson remained, permanent and powerful, rippling through everyone who heard the story. Power isn't about what you destroy, it's about what you build. And respect is the foundation of everything. What would you have done in Amar's position? Drop a comment below. If this story made you feel something, you're not alone. Over 40,000 people have watched stories like this on this channel because they remind us that respect costs nothing, but disrespect can cost everything. Subscribe now so you never miss the next story. Because the world is full of moments like these, where power shifts, consequences arrive, and people learn what really matters. Hit that notification bell. The next story drops in 3 days, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message about respect and accountability, share this video with them right now. Remember, respect is the first term in every contract. Never forget that. See you in the next one.